Let's talk to Jim Leyland, the Tigers skipper. Where are you right now, Skip?
I'm at the hotel just getting ready to go to Citi Field.
All right. How would you manage this game if it didn't matter, if it didn't count for home field advantage? Any differently?
Well, I think you'd make more of an effort to make sure you try to get every player in if you could. And then maybe there would be some rule changes as far as putting a guy back in. You can only replace your catcher. You can't put anybody else back in. So it'd be a little bit more of a casual atmosphere, more of a showcase, and just a little bit more of a total casual atmosphere.
I talked to Tim McCarver last hour about Yasiel Puig, and I was wondering if there's an unwritten rule on how long you need to be in the game before you could be designated as an all-star. And he said if he started the season on the opening day roster, he'd have no problem with him being an all-star. Your thoughts on Yasiel Puig or somebody playing that amount of time to be designated as an all-star?
Well, I think that's, I think everybody has their own opinion on things like that. I don't particularly think you should be in the big leagues 6 weeks and be an all-star. I truly don't believe that. I think there's too many other guys that have played the game for a little longer than that may be deserving this year, and I think you got to be careful of that. I think there is a little bit of a seniority thing. I mean, not that a rookie can't make it if he starts the season, is it tearing it up? That's fine, but I think if you get into a little bit of a gray area there, you got to be real careful with that. I think because there have been guys that have picked for the All-Star game that were picked because they played good 5 years ago, have a great reputation, and had a good career, not necessarily All-Star that year. So I think it's just a personal choice. I just think that, I just don't think 6 weeks is deserving.
Your thoughts on Miguel Cabrera with what he did last year to what he's doing this year? Is there what do you see? Is there anything different this year with him as opposed to last year?
No, I mean everything's pretty repetitious with him. He comes out the same every day, and I think over the last couple of years, I think the biggest difference over the last 2 years, I wouldn't say this year necessarily, but last 2 years, I think he's just not giving any at-bats away anymore. Earlier in his career, every now and then he'd give an at-bat away. He doesn't do that anymore. So I think that's been the biggest difference. And as far as last year and this year, I don't see any difference.
How would you pitch to him?
Well, I can't tell you that.
But is he the kind of guy that has to get himself out?
Well, yeah, I truly believe that, pitchers really don't want to get the great hitters out on strikes. They want to try to get them out of the strike zone if they can. So I think as long as the great hitters don't do them a favor and expand the strike zone too much, I think they, But Cabrera is a little bit different. When you say how would you pitch to him, I truly don't believe there's one way, because if you try to stay away from him, he'll look out there. If you try to come in, he's smart enough to know when to open up and turn on one to keep you honest in there. So I really don't truly think there's any way to pitch him. I think I truly believe that. I mean, you might think there's a hole here or there, but he's so smart that he'll look. He knows what people are trying to do. I think that's the best thing about him. He has a great feel for what the pitchers are trying to do to him each at bat.
Have you ever tried to talk one of your players out of being in the home run derby?
No. I did mention to Cabrera this year that I prefer that he didn't do it because he's been nursing a bat back.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason. No, I think that's a personal thing for a player. I think you should, if you want to be in it and you're one of the guys selected, go for it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. I do think that, when you're nursing a sore back like he's been for about the last 8-9 days, I think you got to be a little careful with it because it can be grueling. So no, I would never try to. This is their show, and I mean, if they want to be a part of that, I think they should be.
He's the Tigers manager, the American League All-Star manager, Jim Leyland, joining us. Dan Patrick Show. How much pressure is on you when you're looking at picking players, or if somebody thinks maybe there's a built-in bias with who you pick?
Dan, I don't think there's much pressure on the manager anymore. To be honest with you, you'd be surprised at the few picks I got, and you'd also be surprised that there were a number of teams, I won't go into it, but there were a number of teams that didn't have a representative. So when you put that together with, the players picking 9, the fans picking 9, you don't really have that many selections. And then the fact that you have to have a representative from each team, you're really not out on a limb too much. I mean, that does not mean to say that there aren't some guys that should be at the All-Star game this year that aren't here. But in reality, most of that goes to the fans and the players voting, not really the managers. So it's not near as bad as it used to be.
If the playoffs started now, who is your game one pitcher?
You mean if we were in the playoffs today, and who would be my game one pitcher?
Yeah.
Um,
Both had the same amount of rest.
No, I don't really know the answer to that. It all depends on, same amount of rest. I mean, that's a hypothetical situation that probably can't come to, play because they probably won't have the same amount of rest. So I don't know. Right now, I mean, you would have to say Max Scherzer, I think. I mean, I'm sure that's the answer that everybody would want to hear and the answer that they would think, but that's not necessarily true. I mean, because like I say, it depends on, you might have to pitch Saturday or Sunday to get in, or Friday to get in, and then you open up Tuesday. That wouldn't be possible. So I think that's it's a nice conversation, but I don't think it's probably going to happen.
But are you managing Verlander differently with the amount of innings he's pitched in the last 3 years?
No, not at all. I think he's a horse. I don't really pay much attention to that stuff. We really watched his pitch count over the years. He's thrown a lot of innings because he's a good pitcher. Good pitchers stay out there for innings. That's what they're supposed to do. So, I mean, he has very strong legs. There's nothing wrong with Justin Verlander. At some point, will it wear out? Yeah, everybody's does, but it won't be while I'm here. I don't think that'll happen.
Well, you thought you were going to see something special from him again yesterday against the Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, he had a chance. It was, it was one of those where the first 3 or 4 innings, you don't think much about it. Fifth inning, not too much. Sixth inning, and everybody starts to, get a little antsy. But, it was probably fortunate for me that Moreland broke up the no-hitter, because I would have really had to watch the pitch count. If you noticed the day before, I believe it was, when Lindstrom threw 148 pitches, I'm sure Bruce didn't want to do that, but he was between a rock and a hard pile, and I agree with what he did 100%. I don't mean that. I agree with him totally, but you're put between a rock and a hard pile. So it might have been a blessing that they got the hit.
Have you pulled a pitcher from a no-hitter?
I don't think so. No, I don't think I ever have. I mean, there could have been a time in my career where a guy was just going to pitch 5 innings and he didn't have any hits, but that was all set up ahead of time. So, no, you just, like I say, that's not a very good feeling for a manager, to be honest with you. It's one of the greatest, individual accomplishments for anybody in baseball, but it's not the easiest thing for a manager if the pitch count starts getting up there. Sanchez threw some more pitches than I would have liked him to throw earlier this year, when he had a no-hitter going into the ninth until Joe Mauer broke it up. But, you just try to do the best you can with it. And in this case, I think Bruce really caught a break because, the All-Star break's coming up. So Tim won't have to pitch for quite a while. He can push him back, give him extra days.
You know how many career wins you have?
I'm sorry?
You know how many career wins you have?
No, I don't pay attention to stuff like that. I know I got a lot of wins. I know I got a lot of losses, but I don't really pay much attention to stuff like that. I'm just proud of the fact that I've been managing the big leagues for 22 years, and that's pretty good for, a guy that really didn't have a lot of ability and was really tabbed as just a minor league guy all along. And, to think that I got that much time, the 26 years in the big leagues, I'm thrilled. I'm very proud of it. But that's something that, I'll appreciate in my own way, but I don't think anybody else makes much big deal about stuff like that when it comes to, I think the thing that I'm proudest of is that when you're a guy like me, and there's some other managers like this, but when you're a guy like me, you have to earn the players' respect. And when you've been a former player and probably a pretty good player, and I don't mean this wrong, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but like a Lou Piniella or a Hal McRae or guys that they have to lose the players' respect. And in my case, guys like myself, probably Tom Kelly, guys, you have to earn the players' respect.
Interesting philosophy there. 1,728 wins, I think you have, just in case, it comes up in conversation. Yeah.
That just means I'm old, I guess.
Well, have fun, and thanks for joining us, Jim.
Dan, anytime. Thank you.
All right. Jim Leyland, Tigers manager, American League All-Star manager. You know what? It's interesting he brings that up, because you can see that with other coaches. You have their respect because you're a name. Some coaches have to earn their respect because they don't have that name. And here's Jim Leyland saying, nobody is a baseball player, but I'll earn your respect, as opposed to walking in and saying, I've got your respect, now I can lose it.